Hey guys, it's Paul Fyffe with Keller Williams, and I am out in Raymore today with Kenny Pfeiler at Pfeiler Farms. And you know, it's spring, and we've seen there's a lot of people nowadays looking at buying chicks and ducks and stuff. And both Kenny and I have those. And my situation is a lot smaller scale than theirs. We've got about 15 hens, well, chickens. We got a couple roosters and the hens, and then a few ducks. And Kenny's got about 8 or 9 times that. So we thought it'd be fun to share some insights, some perspectives, some trial and errors, things we screwed up for sure, and things we've learned along the way. And hopefully we'll have something you'll learn from this. So Kenny, tell them a little bit about how many birds you have, and what type of birds you have, and what you guys do with them.
So we have, our last count, we had about 105 chickens total, egg-laying chickens. And we have roughly 10 roosters. As far as breeds, it's a menagerie of Barred Rocks, Americanas, Easter Eggers, Buff Orpingtons, California Whites, just basically whatever's available at Tractor Supply for the most part. So,
gotcha. And you've also got other birds.
Yes. So last year we started with turkeys. We bought 6 turkeys from Tractor Supply and we raised those, and we found that they can be raised the exact same way that we do our meat chickens. We run them out on pasture in mobile tractors, and so this year we started we're doing 40 turkeys, and then so far we have 60 meat bird chicks that we're raising outside right now.
Awesome. So he mentioned a mobile tractor, and I want to let you know at the end of the video, or maybe in the middle, my son's going to edit the videos. I'll put in some pictures of his mobile tractor. We'll talk about nesting boxes. We'll have pictures of his nesting boxes and our nesting boxes, and we'll kind of have some other stuff, even different breeds at the end of the video, where you can kind of see some of that stuff that we'll talk about. So something that when we bought our birds, we lived in town till about 2.5 years ago in Belton, and we never had chickens. The wife and I never had chickens, and we moved to just outside of Peculiar, and that was kind of one of the things we wanted to do when we got to where we could without any city restrictions, or in our case HOA restrictions. And so we moved out there, and I got some lumber from a friend, a real estate client who was getting rid of some stuff, and then I put that together with some other stuff, but I probably spent a lot of money, way more money than I should have, on a chicken coop. So I probably should sell eggs for about $10 a dozen to get that money back, but we don't. So we started off with 10 chickens. We went down to the family center in Harrisonville. At that time, Tractor Supply was already sold out, and we didn't do any research. We didn't really look at a whole lot, try to learn stuff. We just kind of went and my wife picked them out because they were cute. So we had like 5 different breeds of chicks, 2 of each. We kind of did the Noah's Ark thing, except they were all females. And then we also got a couple ducks because I wanted ducks. And we ended up with a male and a female on those. But you really don't know, especially with the ducks, because they don't usually sex them. And we kind of got lucky with a pair. We've learned a lot along the way. When you bring them home and they're little bitty, they don't require a lot of work, but they do require some time. You gotta keep them safe, obviously, from the dogs or the cats, and you gotta keep them warm. You gotta keep them fed and clean, and keep them water. But that was with 10 at a time. How was it when you're getting 30 or 50 at a time, or whatever?
Oh boy. So when we first started getting chicks, I went to Lowe's and dropped a couple $100 on sheets of plywood, and I made a box. It was 2 foot tall, 8 foot wide, 8 foot deep, and then it had a top on it that I could open up, and then inside that I had the heaters, or the heat lamps. I had 2 heat lamps going, the water, and the chick feeders. So I did that, and when we first started out, we had it. We actually had them in here in a small container because we only had so many starting out. But then every time I'd go to Tractor Supply, and there's a different breed, so we'll pick those up. So as I got more, I needed a bigger room. So we eventually went and put them out back on concrete, put down wood chips, and then had a brooder box there. The bad thing with that is there's no way to really thoroughly clean out the bottom of it. So I just kept adding wood chips, and I was using like the deep litter method. Well, when it was time to move them out on pasture, when they were fully feathered, I pulled everything out, and you got wood chips like this deep, and it's mixed in with chicken poop. It didn't smell good. It turned my concrete black. So then the next round, I figured we'll put some tin underneath everything. And yeah, it was just, so now we have a brooder shed that's easy to clean out. We clean it out every couple days. We throw down pine shavings and wood chips just to keep everything clean and dry. And then slowly, we just keep adding birds to us slowly.
Gotcha.
But yeah, starting out, you can go to Tractor Supply, you can go down to Family Center, wherever, order it online. You can spend a couple $100 easily just on a small coop. For us, that didn't really work so well, so we spent quite a bit of money just on building coops. And I realized after a while, you really don't need to spend that much money on a coop. So, or feeders or waterers. There's very simple ways to get around without breaking the bank.
So something else that I was listening and forgot what I was going to say. Something else that we learned, and what I think a big mistake that a lot of new bird owners do is they maybe don't match the size of their coop, especially if they buy those little bitty ones at Tractor Supply or whatever. Yeah. Ones that are like this big, those are like for 2 or 3 birds.
Right.
And if you get 10 and you put them in that little bitty thing, that's not the healthiest environment for them. So it's important if you're buying a pre-made or a kit for one of those that you really make sure you match that for the number of birds you get. And
because if they don't have space, especially when it comes to roosting, they will peck each other relentlessly, fighting for space. So I think it's like 2 feet you want to give per bird for roosting space.
Sure. Yeah, so when you're talking size, you don't want just width and length. You got to have some volume, some vertical space, so they can actually go up. And the phrase pecking order is a real thing when it comes to birds. There's a couple that get the top notch, and then the rest they kind of filter file in the line wherever they belong. And it's kind of surprising how that works out. But so definitely roosting space, and you need to make sure there's enough space on those bars in there. We've had to add them as we've added more birds in ours, and it's certainly worked out okay. Another thing that people, I think, mistake is they think if they've got 20 birds, they each need their own nesting box. And that's far from the truth. We've got, like I said, probably 12 hens right now, and we got 3 nesting boxes, and they generally use 1. So, because they're not all laying at the exact same time. Sometimes there might be 3 crammed into one little box, but they work it out. And you just have a dozen or so out there yourself.
Yeah,
right?
we for our nesting boxes, we just have milk crates, and we stick straw in there, and they're all in a line. And then we can go out there one day, and there won't be a single egg in a nest box, but yet you go one more over, and there's a dozen just all laying there. So we've done that, and we try to give them, because they like to be seclusive when they're laying eggs. So we have like old totes that we cut a hole in, and they'll go in there, and they'll lay 4 or 5 eggs, and they'll have 3 or 4 birds in there, all trying to lay an egg at once. So yeah, I would say if you go 75%, so if you have, or 50%, so if you have like 12 birds, put out 6 nest boxes. That's all you need. You don't need a nest box for each one. And then chickens like to hide their eggs.
Ours are almost always in the nesting boxes. Sometimes they'll be outside of there, but occasionally maybe the coop door or goes down when it shouldn't, and we'll find eggs under the coop or in various places outside, but in the mud, and that's not very often though. So with your experience, have you dealt with, or do you do much deworming, or do you any kind of vaccinations or any kind of stuff like that?
No. So we don't deworm, we don't vaccinate. I think the only thing we will do is we'll give like electrolyte formula. And there is a mineral drench that you can buy at Tractor Supply that it's like an eyedropper, and you couple eye drops in a 5-gallon bucket of water, and then just pour those into the pans or the waterers, and that's fine. That's all we do. And then otherwise, it's just natural. They're outside, they're scratching, they're going all over the farm. So we've never really lost any to being sick, which, knock on wood, we've been pretty fortunate. So
we have had one get bumblefoot, and basically bumblefoot is they get a cut in their foot, and because they're not always the smartest birds, and they tend to walk around and poop because that's what's out there, and they get an infection in their foot. And that happened. And after a year and a half of having birds, almost 2 years, so he Googled what to do with it, and basically it wasn't pretty. We had to cut it, clean it, do it a couple of days in a row, and then she was fine. It was really not a huge crisis. We did have, and Kenny did too, this month or two ago, we had that super cold stretch. We had a couple birds, roosters, actually had a little frostbite on their comb up here, and it basically turned kind of black and fell off. And I'm not even sure if it comes back or what. I haven't Googled that yet. So I know he's got one we just talked to outside a minute ago. But that was not a normal winter. So had some weird stuff happen, and the birds seemed fine. They just had a little issue on their head. So
that brings me up one more thing. With those cold temperatures that we had, there's a lot of people that recommend putting in like a heat lamp or something like that inside the coop to keep it warm. If you have a coop that's built to house a certain number of birds, their own body heat will keep them warm. So we have roughly 100 chickens that are in our grain bin coop, and it stays about 34, 35 degrees inside that coop, even though the temperatures were so cold outside. So we don't, the only thing that we have is a fan that's on low to pull any moisture out of the coop. And then we have Christmas lights that light the inside of the coop. So because we don't need any added heat for the coop, because all those chickens are putting out so much heat.
And something else, where we live outside of town, and not this winter, fortunately, but the previous winter, we lost power twice. And when you're in an area where there's only 20 homes, you're not on the top of the list to getting your power back. So we actually had a couple of occasions where we were out of power for 3 or 4 days, and we had the fireplace, so we were all good. But if the birds had got used to a heat lamp, and then all of a sudden they got 3 or 4 really cold days with no heat, it could have caused problems. So it's actually more beneficial to not let them have that heat, like you mentioned, and let them just do the natural thing. They're birds, so they did fine. So another thing that we kind of, when you get the little ones, I don't remember, it's been a couple of years, you keep them inside or in the brooder for 8 weeks or so?
Usually, like for all the chicks that we have, you want them to be fully feathered before you bring them out. And then in our brooder hut that we have 3 heat lamps that are spaced out about 2 feet apart. So we have three of them, and then they're set to a point where it's 95 degrees right at the bottom. So there's casting out a lot of heat. But once they all get fully feathered, then you can start pulling that heat away, and then they'll start slowly acclimating to the natural surroundings and the temperature.
Right, and don't be confused when he's talking about heat lamps. When we just said we don't use heat lamps, he's talking about heat lamps for babies with nothing, no feathers, versus a heat lamp for adult birds. So And another thing, if you got ducks actually have a higher body temperature than chickens do. So, you think about ducks, you see them, geese, you see them swimming in the winter. You see them doing all kinds of things that most of us think would be stupid to do in the winter. But ducks, it's just water off their back, so to speak. So, so ducks are a little different too. And some things I even read, because when we got our birds, I learned a lot from Google and other forums online and YouTube. And basically, they said if you had a couple ducks in with your hens, they'll actually help heat that chicken coop up a little more. I didn't measure, but I read that in more than one place, and it kind of makes sense. We were able to raise our 2 ducks and our 10 hens together, and they got along fine. Occasionally, the male duck would try to have his way with the ladies, and I'll let you look it up. They're not physically compatible, so it can cause a challenge. So, but that's something to think about too. You may be able to raise them in the same coop, as long as where you have problems is if you have one male duck and like no female ducks, or sometimes if you have 2 or 3 male ducks and only 1 female duck, you can have that young lady could get kind of abused. So you gotta read up on that, watch some videos, learn a little bit. I'd say YouTube's a great resource. I suggest looking for people in our area, to search Missouri ducks and Missouri chicken people, since they'll be in a similar climate, and what they say would relate more than someone in Florida, but they all might have pertinent information. So, where did you learn about your stuff? I know you grew up on a farm to an extent when you were a kid.
For the most part, a lot of friends. As far as our chickens, we got the Raymore Urban Chicken Coalition. That's a wealth of knowledge. Friends of ours that are a part of that group. There's also Raymore's 4-H chapter. You can learn a lot. YouTube, obviously. You can Google it, YouTube it, and find all kinds of information. But when we first started out, it was just talking to friends that had chickens, because that way you have real life experience, the trials, the tribulations, the successes and the failures from your local area, especially when it comes to weather.
That's true. And then, of course, when you get the little ones, they eat a starter feed, a little different feed than when they get older. And when they get a little older, and we're talking primarily layers right now. He also has meat birds. But regarding the laying birds, you're going to get them a food that's got some calcium and some other obviously beneficial things. You can get some that have omegas in it. You can get some that have insects in them and other things, But if you, like he does, like we have the opportunity, you can let them free range. Saves you a lot of money on feed, because they'll eat worms and other things in the yard which you maybe don't want anyways, and you don't have to buy as much food for them. You just use something from Tractor Supply yourself, or do you get
what's that
for feed?
As far as feed, all of our feed, we get the Dumore layer pellets, and then I mix it in with cracked corn, black old sunflower seeds, and then rolled oats. Wow. So basically, that gives them a lot of the fats and oils and the energy for the winter time, and then during the summertime, it just gives them more energy.
True.
And so it just gives them a little bit more of a variety. So they'll eat that, and then again, they free roam. So the first year we moved here in 2017, we had ticks. 2018, we got chickens, hardly a tick. 2019, 2020, we never had a tick. So they are great at pest control.
That's true. Yeah, I know we have 3 dogs, and they rarely get a tick on them, and they're in the woods all the time, and they have a good time. So I know we get our feed, but for the first year or so, we got our food from Peculiar Farm Supply. I think the gentleman that runs that's name is Leroy. I could be wrong, maybe Leon. But nice older gentleman, retired guy, and he and his son run Peculiar Farm Supply down there. They've got a blend of chicken feed they have made for them, and it's always fresh, and it's about $20 a bag. Something I didn't know before we got chickens is if you're buying it for your livestock, there's no sales tax. That's kind of nice too. But we did switch over. At one point, we had a lot of molting going on, or a lot of stuff going on that didn't seem right. And we switched over to a Purina food, just because, you know, the name and the history. And it's also about $5 cheaper a bag, so it's 15 instead of 20. And I don't think that really fixed the problem. I think the problem was actually a rooster who was a butthead. And so then we just kind of sticking with the Purina, and we used the crumbles because that's what we had previously. And they're kind of like kids and dogs. Sometimes you don't switch stuff up too much. And we also give them the black oiled sunflower seeds, especially in the winter. Gives a little more protein and stuff. And then we'll use all of our eggshells. We'll crunch them up, cook them, and then, you know, the oven to dry them out. And then we give them back to them so they get more calcium. And our ducks, they get a different feed. They get a duck food, and it is not specifically for layers because a lot of people raise ducks for meat. So we add some additional calcium to theirs. But honestly, we have Muscovies and a duck, and Muscovy shells are 3 times as hard as a chicken egg. When you bust it, you gotta hit it really hard to bust those things open. But you know, they're kind of fun, and you know, Muscovies are basically bigger than most domestic ducks. They don't quack. They kind of hiss a little like a goose, and they're really beautiful birds. If you've seen my videos in the past of them, they're just a really pretty bird. And I will actually have some pictures of them at the end of the video too. So you've got your turkeys. You raise them for meat.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You also raise other birds, chickens for meat.
Yep.
And that's what, 3 or 4 months start to finish, or?
It's usually around a 12-week process.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, from the time we get them, they'll be in the brooder for about a month, and then 2 months out on pasture, getting moved every day. They're on fresh grass, fresh pasture, and then they're also getting their feed rations.
And he mentioned in 12 weeks they're ready to eat. So that's something that, if you're going to go buy chicks, make sure you got a good plan for your coop. They grow quickly. And ducks, they seem to multiply in size really quickly. It's crazy how big they grow in a short time. You know, these are wild animals, so it's to their advantage to be able to, well, chickens, not so much. Ducks are wild animals. They got to be able to grow quickly because they got to be safe. And they got to be able to get away from predators and stuff. Speaking of that, you ever have any problems with predators out here?
Yes. The predators that we've had, 2 years ago, we had a coyote for 4 days in a row. She would actually come up through the creek into our backyard, and she made her presence, and we've seen her, but we didn't know that she ever grabbed a chicken or not. Just the other day, we've had fox come down the road, come down our driveway, and next to the garage, and my wife and children are like, "Hey, there's a fox!" So we come running, and it's trying to get a free meal. Then we got possums, raccoons, hawks, owls, eagles. I think if we ever saw a bald eagle though come down, I'm just gonna watch it and
take some pictures.
Pride and patriotic moment going on. Kind of sucks, but you know, it's kind of cool to see a bald eagle up close.
True.
But yeah, other than that, and then as far as eggs, snakes. We have a black snake down by our shop, and we've caught him sneaking a couple eggs here and there.
You know, when we first got ours, I was told, you know, when the girls start laying, it can kind of encourage them to throw golf balls in the nesting boxes. I don't know if it really worked, but I did that. And one time I went out there to get eggs. Unfortunately, it was me, not my wife. I opened it up, the nesting box, and there was a black snake right there.
Yep.
And I thought, oh crap, he's got an egg. Then I realized he had the golf ball. So I pulled him out and I tossed him out in the yard thinking the dogs would play with him, and they didn't care. But I picked him up and he started regurgitating the golf ball back out. And then I took him down away from the house. But, you know, it was kind of entertaining. And I haven't had a snake in there again, but I'm sure it wasn't because of the golf ball, but they just haven't been back in there. And then our situation is a lot different because we've got a run that's about 10 by 24, and it's 10 feet tall. And what I did is it's got landscape timbers around the bottom, and then coming out all the way around 2 feet, kind of flat, it's got chicken wire. So our dogs and other critters can't dig under real easily, and that's all covered up with mulch and dirt. And then the lower 2 feet of the coop, we have welded wire, and then up above that is chicken wire. The chicken wire is great for keeping chickens in, but not the best for keeping other animals out. So,
Yeah.
so far 2 years, I haven't had any critters big break in there. We had a squirrel in there, and he was, I think, freaked out because he couldn't get out. And then we had a baby possum snuck in, and I figured out where he got in, and we have not had that problem again. We do have mice that get in there sometimes, but they aren't really a threat. The chickens will take care of them, and they take care of themselves regarding that.
That's another benefit with chickens. Mice, they are great mousers, believe it or not. They will grab a mouse and they will run with it, and it's like watching a football game, because you got one guy with the ball running down the field, and you got like 100 others running behind him trying to catch him. So yeah, it's a pretty
like rugby.
Yeah,
rugby. There's no rules. Like,
yep.
Same goes with worms. If you get bored and you have chickens, throw a dozen earthworms in there, get some night crawlers, throw them out there. It's kind of fun to watch. Yep. We also feed ours mealworms sometimes. Mm-hmm. They're kind of expensive, so we don't do it very often. It's kind of a bonus treat. But they also like table scraps, a lot of stuff. I know you guys do that. I learned last night they don't like green beans. Put some out there, they didn't care, but the dogs ate them, so it was fine. And then they don't like, what's some of the other things we've thrown out? Cabbage, I don't think they really cared for a lot. What have you experienced?
Cabbage, any onions, broccoli. They will go after a tomato, apples, melons, corn. Oh my goodness. Yeah. They love corn, especially corn on the cob. Yeah, and even like your rinds, your cantaloupe and watermelon, they'll pick that down to nothing, and they seem to love that. And what else do they like? I like them. I let mine in the garden recently. We had it tilled, so they went out there and they'll till that up more, and they get worms and grubs and other stuff out of the garden. But now I put a fence up to help keep them out, because they will eat other stuff in the garden when you don't want them to. Yes.
They will eat flowers if given the opportunity. They'll stir up some mulch and do all kinds of work with mulch if you got mulch in your beds.
They're great at excavating.
Yes, they'll dig holes. Next to our foundation, I've got, which I need to fill in so I don't have water issues. I've got probably a 5-foot trough, because they do dust baths. And they get in there, there'll be 4 or 5 in there at a time doing a little dust baths. And you want to encourage that. That'll help get rid of mites and other critters. We use the fireplace from the house. We put some ashes out. You can throw dichotomous earth out. Look that up if you don't know what it is. I don't know how to spell it.
Diatomaceous earth.
Tenacious earth, sorry. Get it right.
DE. Look, you can ask for diatomaceous earth or DE.
Yeah. It's a little bit of stuff. It helps keep slugs out of your flower beds and stuff too. I don't know what it is. It's magical though, and it's good stuff. Is it calcium shells or something?
What is the name of it? It's like little crustaceans.
Oh, that's right.
That they're all just crushed up as a fine powder. But to insects, it's like razor blades. So yeah, you can mix up the fireplace ash with diatomaceous earth and playground sand, and it creates a great dust bath for the chickens.
Yeah, and you can reuse your ash and stuff like that. So it's a good way to repurpose.
And then throw it in the garden when you're done.
Yep. And the diatomaceous earth, it also you can put it with their food, and it helps prevent worms and stuff too. Yep. We haven't done that, but I've heard that if there's a lot of chicken poop on their eggs, it could mean they have worms. I think it's just because they're messy. But in our case, what else is exciting to know about chickens?
A natural dewormer is pumpkin seeds.
Really?
You can take pumpkin seeds, grind them up, throw that in with their feed, and that's a natural dewormer.
Awesome. So I haven't done that. That's a good idea.
During the winter or during the fall after Halloween, we'll get everybody's pumpkins. A lot of times we'll throw them out to the hogs, but we'll keep some aside and we'll split them. We'll just toss them, split them open, and the chickens, they'll eat the inside, and then they'll also eat the seeds. So it's cool. A good natural way to keep them healthy.
Now, if I remember right, is it about 8 months before they start laying? 7 or 8 months?
Depends on the breed.
Okay.
I'd say around 8 to 9 months would be about a good average.
That's what I was thinking. So yeah, don't think you're going to get eggs right away. It takes some time. And really, we got ours. You get them this time of year. It might be winter before you get eggs, and that's so. Just so you know, and the different breeds lay different amounts of eggs and different sizes of eggs, and there's a lot
And different colors.
Different colors. There's a lot you can learn there. The Easter eggers, they may lay some pretty eggs, but they're kind of small. And then what's the white one?
The California whites.
Okay. Big eggs.
Big eggs, as well as copper Morans lay a really big egg.
And then sometimes you get the ones that you know are painful, the double yolks.
Yes, those are always great though.
They're huge, but you know that hen was loud.
She suffered,
but you get to eat it, so that's all right. And then like the duck eggs and the Muscovy eggs, they're larger too. And of course, do your turkeys lay eggs, or are they just?
They do.
Yeah.
So when we raised our 6 turkeys last fall, we went out there, and I really wouldn't expect our turkeys to be laying any eggs because I thought they had to be older. Well, they were old enough, and we were getting 2 to 3 eggs a day from the turkeys. And for the longest time, I was like, well, we're not going to eat them, so we just kept throwing them to the hogs. But now with 40 turkeys that we're going to be raising this year, I already have people that are asking, hey, when your turkeys start laying, we'll take the eggs. So
Nice.
I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, I want to get one of those when you have some.
Yeah.
Just because I've never seen one to eat, especially. And something I've noticed with our eggs, I'm sure yours are the same. If you get a store egg and one of your eggs side by side, your yolk's oranger or
Yes.
a darker
Yep.
color, right? And I don't know why. Probably because it's healthier, because it doesn't have all the extra potential crap in it. But you know what? Is it?
I honestly, I didn't research it. I've seen that posted so many different times, and I really think a lot of it has to do with, we're allowing our chickens to have free reign over the farm. So if they find bugs, if they get food scraps, it's just added nutrients that they're taking in that's going directly into those eggs. So it's not just a bland, you're getting a crumble and that's it. So
Gotcha.
I think it has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, that's getting the crumbles. We need to give them varieties. That's what we mentioned the other, the leftovers from the kitchen, and that saves you money, And I think you have people who drop off leftovers for you, so you get some extra free
all
stuff.
kinds of stuff.
So
Yeah.
right, snacking on the stuff out there yourself, huh?
No.
Just kidding. But so basically the birds can be a lot of fun. And realistically, for us especially, we've got, like I said, about 15 hens, a couple in the ducks. A normal day for us will be getting up. One of us goes out and opens the coop door. They're still contained within the run. Make sure they got food and water. And that's pretty much it. Maybe grab the Muscovies lay eggs early in the morning, so I'll grab an egg usually early. And then I'll go back around noon and collect chicken eggs because they're kind of laying during the morning hours. And then around, in our case, we feed the dogs around 4:30 or 5. We feed the dogs, put them back in the house. Then we let the chickens roam till dark. And they go to bed on their own. We don't have
Better than kids.
Yes. Yeah, and none of this, I want to stay up later stuff. They just go to bed. Muscovies are kind of a pain sometimes. But they go to bed, then you lock them up, and it's all peachy. It's not, once you get things set up, even with a whole bunch of birds, it's not a ton of work, in my opinion. And you mentioned the deep litter method. So, with our coop, a few times a year, like I literally mean a few, we clean the whole thing out and stock it up with some fresh hay. Mm-hmm. And it's easy. And that stuff goes in the compost bin and later will go in the garden. So it's useful.
And there was actually, just right up the road from us, there was a guy who was actually dethatching his yard. And he had, I think 20 bags of just the leaf bags full of just thatch. So I talked to him and I'm like, hey, can I take it? Sure. So I gave some to our hogs, and then I think we put about 5 or 6 bags just in the coop. So that way it gives them something that's fresh material. They'll scratch through it, find any bugs or anything. And it's just added material that will later get composted and then wind up back in the garden.
Several years ago I worked for True Green, and we actually had an option for people they could get an all-natural treatment plan. And our fertilizer was chicken poop. It was a very fine chicken poop compost, and it worked well. It didn't have, with that line, that people didn't have any kind of weed control. But if you want a natural fertilizer in your yard, that's what it was. It's high in nitrogen and other stuff that helped the soil out, or the grass out. One thing, to keep in mind, we're talking, he's zoned agriculture.
Yes.
I'm outside of city limits. So we can have chickens, really not have any issues. I know in Belton, I think you can only have 4 hens, no roosters. That's how I've actually got a rooster from somebody who was in town. And Raymore, is it none right now?
None right now. We're hoping soon that we'll be able to do that, because there's a lot of people in town that want chickens, that want hens, they want laying hens, just for their own. Like last year during the egg crisis, during the beginning of COVID, people were looking for eggs, and we were pumping them out. The girls were pumping them out as much as they could, and we had a logbook with just pages, of people asking for eggs, and like, well, you're gonna have to go on a waiting list. And people were okay with that, but it kind of made sense, people wanted their own hens. So right now, the answer for Raymore is unless you have 3 acres or more, or if you're zoned agriculture, I think.
And some HOAs might have restrictions, additional restrictions too, in any town.
Yep.
And then Harrisonville, you can have hens in town, but you have to get permission from your neighbors. I think the information is going to be on the websites for these cities, but you have to get like a signed thing from your neighbors saying they're okay with it. And that's hens, no roosters. And same with peculiar, no roosters in town. You can have, I think, 3 or 4, maybe 5 hens. So, and realistically, hens aren't really noisy, but when they lay eggs, sometimes they can get pretty excitable. Yeah. As you can imagine, if you're passing an egg, you might get kind of vocal. So,
but it's kind of a pleasant sound, because that she's putting out some fresh products, so right. Which is kind of nice.
And one of the coolest things for us is really just, and especially cool with you. You have younger kids; they can learn about where the food comes from.
Yes.
And I know you've had a lot of visitors out here since you've been here, and the kids especially get to learn, and some adults get to see the process. And they learn that. The chicken, the egg, the chickens get eaten, the eggs get eaten, and same with the pigs and everything else. It's a process, and it's a pretty cool process to learn more about. And I think it's cool that you allow the tours, allow the people out here, and you've got stuff that you've grown or produced out here to sell. I think that's pretty awesome. And we should probably sum this up pretty quick here. But one other thing that, especially us with fewer birds. The chickens can be fickle. Something can happen, and then you aren't getting any eggs, or you're getting 1 a day when you got 10 the day before. And I know you got a lot larger numbers, but I'm sure you go through that.
But the most we've ever collected was 84 eggs in 1 day.
Wow,
it was great. It only happened for 1 day, and that was, I think, July or August of last year. We collected 84, and then. I don't know what it was, but after that, it just started going downhill. So now we're collecting about 3 to 4 dozen a day, out of 80, 90 some hens. So some of them are getting old. So some of them are 2 to 3 years old. So their production, their annual production for eggs is starting to drop. So that's why we bought, I think we got 30 or 40 egg layer chicks right now. So,
and that's something to keep in mind too, that you may have to replenish your chickens on a regular basis to have, if you want to have kind of a continuous output of a specific amount. I know with ours, there's a lot of factors that can cause the birds to go on strike, so to speak, and stress like from dogs or predators, or temperature changes, or maybe you screwed up and didn't give them food or water for a few days. There's some things like that can cause them to just not produce. And generally, and molting season and some other things, they'll produce less and lots of light or lack of
sunlight or the lack of sunlight is a big factor. I've realized that the shorter days, because it takes a chicken like 25 hours to produce 1 egg. So from the time it starts to the time it comes out, it's 25 hours. But they need that light to help trigger the growth for eggs.
Yeah, this year I put a light in our coop, an LED one, so it wouldn't get too hot and potentially cause a fire. put an LED one in there, and it's on a timer, so it would come on about 5 a.m. to give them a little more daylight. You know, it wasn't sun wouldn't come up till 7:30 or something. So I just unplugged that the other day as we've changed the clocks. But you know, and I mean, you mentioned you have lights in there as well. So that's something, you know. Once again, YouTube or holler at us if you have questions. I'm sure, I know Kenny will talk to you about chickens.
Yep.
We've been chatting for half an hour probably. So they're kind of fun. You know, they can certainly be an interesting thing for your kids and you to learn. My wife and I were empty nesters pretty much when we got ours, and you know, we've learned a lot, and we've figured out some stuff, and you know, we did figure out one last thing. Some roosters can be turds, and we had one that was super aggressive. His name was Chuck Norris. They kick, so he was Chuck Norris, and he got to where he was afraid of me because I was not afraid to smack him on the head. Forgive me, PETA, but he was. Sometimes you gotta give a little kick or a head smack, and they will back off. But he was not afraid of my wife or the kids, for that matter, without them having to be a little defensive. So, you know, but they're not all like that. I know half of you have seen the FedEx guy videos where the guy's being chased by someone's roosters or something like that. That totally happens. But, you know, realistically, they're a 6-pound bird or whatever they are. And, you know, you got to show them who's boss. And occasionally they may not get the message, and you have to get rid of them. But realistically, he's got 10 of them or so out here.
Yeah.
None of them were chasing me, and I was a stranger walking around out there a while ago. So
we have one rooster that he'll kind of blow up a little bit on little kids. So other than that, even the last 3 years, we haven't really had any mean roosters. We've been really lucky with that. And I think one of the other things is our kids. They love to they'll go reach down and grab a chicken, they'll hold it and they'll pet it and they'll love on it. And they'll do that. And it's a great bonding issue or bonding moment for my kids as well as the chickens. So
and you'd be surprised, the chickens talk to you. You know, they make all kinds of sounds that make no sense, but you can tell when they are afraid or when they seem to be okay with you holding them. It's kind of fun. And of course, part of this video will show he was throwing some tortillas out for him a while ago, and they come running. They look like little velociraptors running after the
little waddle.
Little what?
Little waddle. They waddle back and
definitely. Yeah. And they don't have arms to balance them off, so they look kind of weird running. But
you can buy the arms for them.
And harnesses to take them for a walk in the neighborhood.
Yes.
So I don't think I'll do that though. But it's certainly fun. So, well, guys, I hope this has been somewhat informative, or if not entertaining, hopefully too. You know, most of you know where Kenny is. He's out there off Madison and Raymore. And they've got stuff for sale generally throughout the year if you want some meat and stuff.
Yeah, we got whole chicken. We got some pork left.
Awesome. Bacon's awesome. And then
sold out.
Never mind. That's how awesome it is.
In May.
Then he's also got a barrel out there for food scraps and stuff.
Yes. Yep.
And you take leaves in the fall and other stuff?
Leaves in the fall, yeah. In the fall, we'll take the leaves. We'll take corn, or the corn stalks, the decorative corns, hay bales, straw bales, just about anything that's fall decorations.
Cool. And you've got something coming up here in the near future?
Yes. So we have 6 gilts, or female pigs, that are due to give birth or farrow. And once that happens, we're having another open farm tour. So Piggy Snuggles is what we called it last year. We had about 600 people here on a Saturday, and they lined up waiting to snuggle up on baby piggies. And so we'll have it out in the front yard. We got the Jiggy Pig is going to be here.
Good.
So you'll have the full circle of life, right, from birth to product. All here on the farm, and you guys can walk around the farm. We'll have, hopefully everything will be dry enough. We'll have the cows up here, the llama, the donkeys, the sheep, so that way people can see them, interact, and they can ask us questions. So
bacon seeds.
Bacon seeds. Yep.
So cool. Well, guys, if you have questions about this stuff, feel free to holler at either of us. Our contact information will be at the end of the video if you don't already have it. On my personal Facebook page, I frequently go out and show little videos of my chickens and stuff, just being goofy. and they're kind of fun to watch. I'd say therapeutic in some cases. If you have questions about real estate stuff in this area, please give me a shout. I'd love to help out. I work all over the metro, but I'm from Cass County and been here a long time. So would love to help with anything I can help with, and I'm sure Kenny would too. So Take care, guys, and have a great day.
See you guys.